So today we're talking about parallelogram symmetries, the less recognized cousin of square symmetries and rectangle symmetries that has a maximum of twofold rotational symmetry. It has 4 positions of twofold rotational symmetry. And I'll be going through some of the tilings, some of the tessellations that show this symmetry. And for the purposes of today, I'm choosing to talk about parallelogram symmetries that do not include any mirror symmetries. So let's jump right in. First up, we've got the aligned rhombi tiling. So this tiling has all rhombi. If you squint your eyes and slant your view, it really looks like a square tiling, but none of these quadrilaterals, these shapes with 4 edges, have 4-fold rotational symmetry. They just have 2-fold, just like each of these rhombus twists. So these rhombus twists have 2 sides that are the same. So they have they have 2 directions that are the same. They have 4 pleats, and the opposite pleats are the same as each other and different from the other direction. So when you put a bunch of these together all lined up the same way, you end up with this alternation between a right-handed and a left-handed rhombus twist. So all the right-handed ones are in these columns pointing up and to the left. All of the left-handed ones are in these columns pointing up and to the right. So we've got these 2 columns that are alternating. And this columnar structure, this column-like structure, is also common for the parallelogram symmetries. But unlike the linear symmetry that we're going to look at next week, it does not have any mirror symmetries between the columns. So we've got this arrangement of rhombi. Let's take a look in the diagram of what that symmetry actually looks like. So we've got 4 positions, 4 distinct positions of twofold rotational symmetry. We've got the 2 positions that are inside the twist themselves, both right and left-handed. And then we have 2 distinct positions in 2 different loops of 4 twists. So we've got the position that is effectively in this loop of 4. So going between these 4 twists, and the position that is in the second loop of 4 that's going at a different angle than the original loop of 4. And taking a look at the back, we can see that there are indeed twofold rotationally symmetric positions in the center of each bar and the center of each gap. So that's what our twofold rotationally symmetric positions are telling us. Now there's other ways to fold tessellations in this tiling. We can make half of the twists open instead of closed. We can put half of the twists on the back, and this is what I'll be demonstrating at the end of today's live stream on a 16-fold triangle grid on a square. And this one, by the way, looks the same on both sides. We can do that same thing even closer together. Again, same on both sides. We can even do alternating sides with different clumps, different areas that have different thicknesses. So here I've added space in these lines and also in these lines. Now this is less visible, but I've got an extra space in here that I wouldn't have otherwise. So that's something we'll see again later on. We can do this symmetry with spacing, even if it's not a natural tiling fit. So our next tiling up is the split rhombi 1 tiling. So I say split rhombi 1 because this would be aligned rhombi, but we've split every other rhombus in half. So then we get these column structures, and we can have a maximum symmetry that includes mirror symmetries, although I haven't seen any combination of rhombus and triangle that actually allows us to use the mirror symmetries in this tiling. What we're mostly going to see are these positions of twofold rotational symmetry. Again, these positions are in the center of the rhombus and in the center of the loops of 4. In this case, we have the same pattern on both sides, and we do not have any mirror symmetries, so this does fit the parallelogram symmetries that I was describing. We can also do this with open rhombi. We can do this with open triangles. We can do this with open triangles and space it out. We can do this with open triangles. We can do this with open triangles that are on the opposite side from the rhombus that's in the same column. There's just a lot of different ways to get into the arrangements of these columns, and really it comes down to, okay, what's my rhombus? What's my triangle? Is the triangle on the same side as the rhombus? How far apart are the triangle and the rhombus? How far apart are the clusters of repeats? How far apart are the columns? So with those questions, you can really build up a huge set of different tessellations to play with. Now on to our next tiling. This one is going to look very familiar. So this would be a square tiling, but I've cut every other square in half to make 2 right triangles. This should sound really familiar from the last tiling where I had a whole bunch of rhombi and cut every other rhombus in half to make 2 triangles. And the same rules apply. So I've got this tessellation where I've chosen to have a closed square, closed rhombi on the same side, and then switch to the opposite side to continue. With this tiling, however, there's a very real availability of, not the skeleton, the symmetries, availability of mirror symmetry lines as a possibility. And so I'll show you next week when I talk about the linear symmetries, how this looks if you take advantage of those one-directional mirror symmetry lines. I say one-directional because it's forming columns, not boxes. Before, when we've seen mirror symmetry lines, they're either going around a triangle or around some rectangle. In the linear symmetry, they'll just be forming columns, but since we're not talking about that symmetry yet, I'll stick to the parallelogram symmetry. So here again, the twofold rotational symmetry is in the middle of the 4-sided twist, the square, in the middle of the loop of 4 twists, squares, and 2 triangles. Or I should say 2 quadrilaterals and 2 triangles, in this case squares and right triangles. In the split rhombi 1 tiling, it was rhombi and equilateral triangles. There's a variety of examples of this too. We can stick those triangles on the back side. We could do open twists for any of the above. There's just a lot of options. So continuing on, another one you might not expect, you can do this with trapezoids too. So you can take the hexagons and triangles 6-fold tiling, split all those hexagons in half in one direction, and all of a sudden you have of twists. So we've got these column structures that we again can choose whatever combination we want. We can, let's say we stick with the trapezoids being on opposite sides of each other. Then we can choose, okay, is this going to be an open or a closed trapezoid? This trapezoid is actually the arrow twist from Ben Parker's 6 Simple Twists book. It doesn't actually form a trapezoid, but you could do, so this is the open, you could do even more. And then you choose what triangle you want. Do you want it to be on the same side as the twist whose pleat or the opposite side? And then you choose the spacing between the clusters and you get your whole symmetries. Now, the difference here is that we don't do fold rotational symmetry in our quadrilateral twist, and it's going to be in these two